Hello, this is Theron from Bricks and Flicks. Tonight we have Spider-Man, the movie from 2002, Tobey Maguire, and I am going to be building the Lego set, the origins of Spider-Man and Green Goblin, the origins, set number 4851. With me tonight, I'm going to have HTPB, my brother Todd, and another guest, Chris, is going to be joining us hopefully shortly. When that happens, Todd will probably drop down to the spot below me. But so that will be a little bit interesting when it happens, but otherwise, everything's good. As far as Spider-Man goes, Todd, did you see this in the theater?
Yes, I think I remember seeing it in the theater. Yeah.
The
Uh,
only one I specifically remember seeing in the theater, I know I saw this one in the theater, but Spider-Man 3, and I remember cringing the whole way through. We were
it was
sitting in
hard
the
to be in the audience. It was hard to be in the audience on
yeah,
that one.
we got there late, and we were in the very front row. So we're sitting there looking up at the camera, looking up at the theater, and I'm like, oh my god, what are we watching? It was
Well,
already
when he was
uncomfortable, and then we were watching that, and it was uncomfortable. I don't know. It was terrible.
doing his little emo strut thing, I just I gotta leave. I gotta go. I gotta get out of this room. It was so hard to watch.
I We were so close to walking out, and then we're like, you know what? Let's suffer through it. But two's my favorite.
Suffering, suffering's a good word for it.
Yeah, two's my favorite. But this was a great movie. The only other superhero movie that came out that was even worth a damn before this was X-Men, and then when this came out, you realize just how much can be done with special effects, and what I really thought was cool was even today, some of the movies that are coming out, the special effects suck, and these special effects still hold up really well in comparison to some of the stuff coming out today. So I was rewatching this four times now in the last couple of days. Um, yeah, it was really cool. Let's see here. Looks like we're getting Chris should be coming in sometime soon. All right, Todd. Anything you want to say about the movie itself, or introduction, or anything about it?
Well, I remember not believing how long some of these superhero movies take to get through the credits. The X-Men movies with following through the tubes and trying to do the Windows screensaver of Tubes of Death or whatever. And then this one with all the spider webs over and over and over and wondering, okay, now
Hey,
they showed sort
I
of
gotta
like
go. I'll see you in a bit.
they showed like an image of an animated like Spider-Man, and then it went away and more credits and more credits and more credits. And I was like, okay, when's this stupid movie gonna start? It's almost like you kind of appreciate a James Bond movie that opens with a scene, and then after that scene is over, while you're digesting it, the credits are going, and then they show you teasers of things for the coming up in the movie that you should pay attention to. But it gives you something to watch during the opening credits, and you'd already seen a little bit of action, so that you're not just sitting there going, okay, I sat for 25 minutes watching previews for other movies, and now I sit for 25 minutes watching the credits for the beginning of this movie. It's like maybe they know that you're not going to sit at the end and watch all the credits because they hadn't started putting teasers at the end of the credits like they did with Marvel Universe.
Right. Yeah, it looks like we're getting Chris.
Yeah, man. Sorry.
Yeah, we're all right.
I I think I was trying to join the wrong channel, and it kept kicking me an error that said I needed another invite. And then I think I was writing you to ask for the, new invite, also in the wrong channel. So, yeah. All right. I'll see you in a bit. All right. 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 All I think I'm good now.
All right. Well, do you have anything to say about Spider-Man while you're disappeared behind your background?
Oh, I did disappear behind the back. Looking for my hat, so nobody had to look at my bald head.
Yeah, you need to cover that up. We don't need to see that.
That's what I'm saying. Who wants to see that?
Is this
Well,
the
then I have
same
to because I
background you
can't find
had
my
for
hat.
this Into the Spider-Verse, isn't it? That's is that Miles Morales?
It looks like
I
it's
don't,
got sneakers on.
I don't know if that one's. Uh, I've got one that's appropriate for today.
All right. Well, since we're already
All
on,
right.
this is Chris up above, and he's going to be with us. Chris, did you see this one in the theaters?
I did.
Do you remember seeing it? Because I don't. I remember seeing it in
I
the theater.
don't.
I just don't remember seeing it.
Right. I went and I actually forgot that I watched it in the theater until I was talking to the grandkids about it, and they reminded me that I brought them.
Oh, well, hey.
So I guess they're right.
They probably have better memories than we do. Their brains are still
Yeah, I
spongier
trust.
than ours.
Yeah.
Do you have anything about
so,
it that you? Oh, there we go. Do you have
so
anything
can
about it you want to say?
I have flip flopped over the years as other movies came out. This I really think is my favorite Spider-Man movie, even though I prefer. I mean, I like the Andrew Garfield. Don't get me wrong, but I like the newest Spider-Man. I like.
You like Tom Holland?
I like him so much. Yeah, I couldn't think of his name. Yeah, Tom Holland.
Well, it helps that
But
he can
I
do.
like Tom Holland a lot.
It helps that he can do the flips and most of the actual acrobatics himself.
Right. And it helps that the reason why he can do the acrobatics and the flips is because he was a fan from the age of 3 and has videos and pictures of himself dressing up at 4 and 5 years old as Spider-Man. I just think it's a neat full circle. So I like him. But as far as the movies go, this is one of my favorites. I really think it is my favorite because it's so iconic. The way it was shot, the way it gave the story a typical superhero story. You're going in trying to save the girl. You got the tragedy of Uncle Ben and Aunt May. You've got the bully arc in the story. It's like it ticks all the boxes for me. I like it a lot.
Well, I think Todd's got a really good introduction. His feelings on this.
I'd love to hear it.
What do you got to say, Todd?
Well, there's an introduction, I guess. So here comes the big letdown, I guess. So
That's fine.
I was listening to a couple of videos from different people while I was putting together my timeline for this, because I had taken all the notes on paper and I converted them all to PowerPoint so that it would be cleaned up and I could share it for anyone who wanted to see what the timeline was, add in their own comments or whatever. So while I was doing that, I was listening to other videos and I was listening to some Jordan Peterson videos, and he was saying some things at the end of one of his lectures to one of his students that was asking a question that had nothing to do with the lecture, it seemed, but it completely had everything to do with the idea of what we were seeing in this movie. And as I fleshed out what he was saying, I thought about some things I wanted to say before I said those things, and some things to say afterwards, because this movie, there's a lot of stuff that culturally prepared me to see the movie, and also that I've learned to appreciate what this movie has because of it, even after the fact. So I've said a whole lot already, and I haven't said a single thing yet. So let me go into this a little bit. I remember when I was in high school, the older math lab kids got a hold of reel-to-reel movies from Monty Python and showed them in the auditorium in the high school before I was even a high school student. And we used to see Monty Python movies on a Saturday, and everybody would throw popcorn and candy and bean you in the head with it and stuff. But if you could survive the onslaught of kids screwing around, I got to have some exposure to Monty Python. And so we were big fans of Monty Python, and one of the Monty Python skits was about Michelangelo, I think it was, because they had the Sistine Chapel, and I don't know if it was the Last Judgment or if it was something, but it's got a line at the end where they're arguing about what should be in the painting or whatever, and the punchline is, I don't know much about art, but I know what I like. And I don't know whether that was a saying in Great Britain or a saying in Scotland that was common to Brits, but the first I heard about it was in Monty Python, and I used to repeat it all the time. I don't know much about art, but I know what I like, you know? And I think that the people who make movies and people who write books and people who paint paintings and do sculpture and stuff, sometimes they are in touch with something that's speaking to them that they want to show that they can't even describe if you ask them. It just seemed right for them when they did it. And perhaps the meaning that we find when we analyze this movie and that we're going to analyze isn't something that the directors meant, maybe. Maybe it wasn't something that Stan Lee meant. Maybe it wasn't something that even the actors really understood what they were doing. They might have been doing this for all different reasons, like telling a story from your comic book past when you were a kid. Now you want to see a live action movie of it when you're an adult, and that's cool, you know. But what you don't understand is that there's a lot of deep meaning in the success of these things that are success for reasons that we don't even fathom, but they're there because they're part of our culture. The things that make sense to someone make sense to you because it's part of the foundational ideas of our culture, and you take it for granted and you don't realize that's why it makes sense to you. All you know is that, oh no, that movie was okay. That it didn't like make me say, no, there's something wrong about that movie, you know? And so whether or not all the things we find in this was meant by the people who did it, or whether or not as a viewer anyone's seen the same sort of thing and thought the same thoughts we were going to talk about, maybe there's some stuff in there that could be explained with analysis that people go, yeah, I think that's right, you know. So the thing that Jordan Peterson said is that all levels of creative product like art, there are various strata of conception of abstraction, which means some movies are pretty deep and some are pretty complex. Books are complex and deep, and some artwork as well. And it's not for everybody at every level, you know. And the people who create the movie have to make a movie-going experience. Maybe the actors and the directors are just trying to make some money. Hey, if we make a couple million over what it costs to make this money or this movie, it'd be worth it. You know, if we make 10 times what we put into it afterwards, then we definitely did the right thing. But I don't know whether they're trying to solve world's problems or trying to solve make a statement about the downfall of our society or not. But I think a lot of stuff went into this movie accidentally and on purpose that make it a really great movie. So, interestingly, Jordan Peterson said that only about 15% of our population in the world actually has read a book all the way to the end. And that some people can't even do that. And that maybe 20% of the people can't even follow instructions that are written down. You know, if you put it into perspective of how many people there are, that's the same kind of numbers of how many people go to see movies. You think everybody that you know goes to see movies because they're the people that you hang out with. But you don't realize there's a lot of people that don't go to see movies. And they don't have any level of understanding of any of the stuff they're seeing. And someone might, like, I think there's a lot of dumbasses in the world that watch a movie and go, oh, I was okay. I'm not a big fan of that actor. And it's like, dude, you missed the whole point. You didn't even get what that movie was about. It had nothing to. I'm not a big Tom Cruise fan per se, but when I watched The Last Samurai, I thought it was one of the greatest things ever made. it spoke to me in ways. There's a whole bunch of stuff about that. If you ever want to do Last Samurai, if you got some ninjaku or something, we could do
I
those.
could get some.
But you don't have to like Tom Cruise to know that that's a great movie. You don't have to like Mel Gibson to know that Braveheart was an awesome frickin' movie. If you don't see it, I feel sorry for you. I really do, because you missed so much by not thinking that that was like epic. It makes every range of emotion your body can feel within a 3-hour period, and the good guys win, or sort of win, and people do things for the right reasons, even if it means they might die doing it. It's got like all the elements of a hero that you ought to have in a movie. So, anyway, so these archetypal stories, which make up what we understand as a good movie, whether it be a hero's journey story, or there's a hero who has some power that we wish we had or something. It's not all just based on strength. Now, Peter's going to get some powers when he gets bit, and strength has a lot to do with it. And when Norman Osborn takes his super serum in this movie, he gets 8 times the human strength at least. That's what the laboratory rats got the first time they got it. But so he's at least 8 times as strong, and he hand catches a punch from Spider-Man, and he goes, good arm, something like that. And so there's super strength in this movie, but what we have to understand is that all through our mythology, strength alone isn't what matters. I mean, Jordan Peterson, in his thing that I was watching, he says you could win a battle and you could win 2 battles, but you can't win 500 battles, because someone's going to kick your ass one time because he's better than you. There's always someone stronger than you. But in as much as it's good to be strong, it's good to be strong and kind, better than it is to be strong. And it's good to be strong and kind and wise, better than it is to be strong and kind. All these are facets of what make the archetypal hero, or the things, the ideals that we shoot for. Okay. And so you can't just look at the powers of a superhero and say the powers make who he is, because it's not just the powers that make who you are. It's your foibles, and it's your disadvantages, and it's your susceptibilities and stuff. When we used to play role-playing games for superheroes like villains and vigilantes and champions and stuff, there is a leveling where you could create a character at a certain level when you start out, because you just don't have enough experience to buy cool powers. So you got a baseline set of powers, and your character is pretty mediocre if you didn't buy some disadvantages and susceptibilities too, because the trade-off is, if you have someone who can't stand fire, or they're going to take double damage, or if you've got dependents like an Aunt May you have to take care of, who can't even walk with a walker or something, and that the bad guys always go for them to take them out, and you have to protect them, you can get points for that you can spend on better powers. So you might have a kick-ass hero that's got so many things wrong with him that you give your dungeon master plenty of ammo to make scenarios where you have to figure out how to work around your disadvantages and your disabilities, and that adds depth, and all those foibles that heroes have make it us be able to relate to them, because that's humanity. We have all these foibles. You might be good at something, but you're shitty at this, and this. And the way you go through life, even though you've got those problems, is what makes everybody like you or not like you, And so the journey that this movie takes our characters on isn't just the origin story that you read in the comics, and it's not just a movie about a girl. We'll talk about this in a second, but it's got all this stuff buried in it. So when we go to some of these scenes and we pick apart the pieces, I think we'll come to a point right at the 1 hour part of the movie where I think the movie pivots and recaps everything that's happened up to that point, even though you don't even realize it's doing it, but I'll explain why I think it is, and sets you on the mindset to continue to wait for the conclusion that's going to happen at the end, to justify this whole movie's purpose, and to justify the characters as being good guys or bad guys, and so we're going to go through scene by scene, and we'll all talk about the stuff that we think was cool about a certain scene, and I will definitely listen to any thread of thoughts that you guys have. And I'm not going to drive this whole thing other than I'm going to do the timeline. But about halfway through the movie, I'll say what I'm talking about why I think this is a recap of the first half of the movie. I guess I don't know if it's, I'm looking at my own mirror image, so I don't know where the front and where the back is, but it's either that way or it's that way. And so
For a second there, it looked like you were doing finger cuffs.
yeah, I can never make them touch. It's kind of like, they never quite make it. I don't know. I'm just drinking iced tea. It's just iced tea, I swear.
Sure.
Anyway, so anyway, I like the idea that there are different strata of conception of abstraction, which means there's information hidden in this in multiple levels, and it's not for everybody, and not everyone's going to get it. And I'm not saying I'm the person that does. That's why I like talking about these and hearing what other people have to say. But I have to say, if you watch a movie and you're not getting any of these meanings out of this movie, then I really honestly feel sorry for you. And you got to listen to discussions about meaning, and maybe listen to some of Jordan Peterson's lectures on it, and understand that this stuff is purely embedded into a whole bunch of movies. If you want to know two of them that he does that are really great, is Pinocchio and The Lion King. And if you think you know anything about mythology, you don't know anything about mythology until you listen to him pick apart those movies and tell you why those movies made so much sense. So that's what we think we're doing here, I think. I did a lot of talking. I know Terrence got some Lego building to do at the same time. So
that's what we're hoping to do here, is to make sure that, that some of the things that we saw in the movie itself, whether it was intended or not, comes out, and that we can discuss it and have fun with discussing it. Which is, I love talking to my friends and about movies. So this is the reason why I do this. So I guess Todd, you summed up pretty much everything that our reasons for doing this. Do you have anything, Chris, to add before Todd starts us on the movie?
Number one, I love that you listen to Jordan Peterson. I think that he speaks sanity into an insane world. And I agree. And I the only thing I would add is that if they didn't intend to weave all the moralistic stories into this movie that were woven into it, that it's one hell of a serendipity going on. Because
I guarantee that's the case. I guarantee that's the case.
I have to agree with you on that, both of you, because a lot of movies, when you watch them, they seem so deep, but then you listen to the commentary from the creators, and they're shallow as hell. Like, they have no idea that the stuff that went into it became that deep, and the people who are watching it are actually the ones who bring the depth to the story, because they can see things. It's the part of it's the part of entertainment that it seems like some people nowadays don't understand. You don't need the diversity. You don't need to be represented, because you as an individual can see inside the story probably more than was intended by the creators. And
it's part of human nature.
Yeah.
But I think anyway, our society's gotten so used to being offended by things that you can't tell a story without putting it in the framework of everybody not being offended. When you can just say, this is a story. Maybe it's all black people in this movie. Who cares? Enjoy the movie. It doesn't make it a slight to white people. It doesn't make it a slight to Asian people. It's a story that has all black people in it. When you have white people in the movie, guess what? The majority of our population is white, but now we've got maybe 2 actors who are white in every movie, and the rest are all minorities, whatever the hell that even means, because they feel underrepresented across the board or something. It's like, you're underrepresented by population. Am I racist for saying that? I mean, what are the facts? I don't know. It's ridiculous. So you can tell a story maybe, and you ought to be able to tell a story. That's a standalone story, and maybe in the next 3 stories I'll tell that'll make you happy because it'll include the things you want to be in it. But this story doesn't have that stuff. I'm sorry. Read more books or watch more movies, and you can have a
Right.
whole library. You know.
All right, something I did
Also-
mention to Todd earlier. Chris, you didn't hear this part because you weren't there yet, but this particular set, the 4851, goes for $500 brand new. The stickers that I have not even used, they're as much as $185 for the stickers, which I thought was insane. But since I haven't even used them yet, yeah, I could sell them if I wanted to, but I don't like stickers. I'd rather have Lego actually print the pieces, but they don't do that. Apparently, it costs them too much or something. But that was just something I wanted to tell about the set before we start the movie. Anything else, Chris or Todd?
No, I'm ready.
All right, cool.
Well, when you talk about the price of a new set, I was like, oh, wow, they got quadcopters made of Legos now, and you have a Lego controller. I go, I got to get that for Theron. And I'm like, $240. Theron's not getting that. I'm like, sorry, Theron.
I don't. I've purchased a couple of sets that are $100 over the years, and I can't justify the ones that are more than that. It's really hard to justify that amount of money. Lego are way too expensive for that, but every once in a while I throw a little bit of money in.
Well, since we've been doing this, I've even thought about going to yard sales again and just browsing around and oh, you see anything you like? I'm like, nope, no Legos. But go and look at all the yard sales and buy some kids Legos because they have no idea how much they're worth. And it's like, I'll give you $5 for all those Legos. Okay, yeah, that's a good deal. Everybody's happy.
I had a friend who wanted to sell all his kids Legos, and he was going to sell me the whole set of everything. We had figured, because he had everything labeled out as like $10, $15, whatever, for his yard sale. And I said, yeah, I'll take the whole lot from you. And then his wife apparently found out. He's no longer with, but his wife found out, and suddenly, well, we'll sell it to you for $400. I'm like, fuck, 145 to 400? Yeah, no, not gonna happen. But it was unfortunate. I was interested in the sets, and I would have taken them off his hands, but not for that much.
Well, when they do sell the bins with like I don't know if it's like 350 pieces or 500 pieces, and it's like $30, I'm like, hey, give me one of those. Grandkids are going to be growing up someday. There'll be some Lego bins for them when they grow up.
Nice.
Anyhow, all right. Well, so what we'll do, I guess, is I guess we sort of kind of agreed by not really agreeing, but if this goes to around 3 hours and we're not done yet, then we'll just stop it and have a part 2, because even people who can sit through 3 hours have trouble sitting through 4. So
Yeah.
However far this goes and however much conversation we have, perhaps just hopefully it'll be interesting enough what we talk about that you could watch it even if it doesn't finish in 1 hour. Maybe this might go a couple hours, who knows. So
How
all right.
long do you think it'll take to assemble the set that you're working on?
This is only 220 pieces or so, 218 pieces. So it won't take me long. I'll just slowly do it. If I finish quickly, I have a mech armor set with Green Goblin and Spider-Man that I could build. So I don't know. We'll see.
We could always take a consciousness stream break when you get finished with it and talk about it for a while and then come back to the conversation and just have you part of the conversation.
Wow. Be part of a conversation?
I mean, a focus part that's not playing with Legos. Yeah, no, I'm listening to you. I really am.
No. I'm going to tear this apart and build something new.
No, honestly, I'm listening to you. I really am. All right.
Let's go.
So, like a lot of these movies, for some reason, the directors and the screenplay writers seem to think that they have to coach the audience through the movie because maybe they don't know everything that the moviegoers would know if you're a comic book hero fan. If you're just a off the street person, you want to enjoy a movie, they kind of make it a standalone in itself movie so that even the layman can enjoy it, I guess. So we've got the ridiculous narrations at the beginning and the end of some movies that frame it for you so you know what you're doing. But I suppose even Star Wars gave you 3 paragraphs of this is what's happening, and it saves a whole lot of time of you trying to guess what's going on. But the movie starts out with Peter Parker giving a quick narration about if somebody told you my life story or this story was a happy story, then they lied to you. It's not. It's got some ups and downs, whatever. But when you get right down to it, it's all about a girl. So they're trying to tell you that this is a story that's about a girl, but everyone who's watching it knows it's an origin story for a superhero. So I don't know why they tried to distract you with a story about a girl or let you jump into it and, oh yeah, we know it's about a superhero, but oh, this is going to be about a girl. Okay. You know, so anyway, they do that. So the girl that he shows MJ on the bus, redhead, Kirsten Dunst. And this is the girl. And I'd love to say that the guy with the armor on the girl is me, but it's not me. And it pans past the bully fat kid who's eating a jelly donut and the jelly's dripping on his lap. And he's like, I'd even take him as being me, but that's not me either. I'm the one chasing the bus like a moron who missed the bus. And if you ever rode the bus, and there's some people who've ridden the bus, we used to ride the bus for a while, and then we ended up walking. And back then, you could walk to school even if it was across town, and even if it was elementary age and it was across town, we still kind of did that, and it didn't seem to bother anybody back then. Now it's child abuse if you let your kids walk to school. But Peter's chasing the bus, and the first time I saw this, I kind of missed the fact that MJ was sticking up for Peter. I thought maybe she was being awfully aloof and not his friend for being his neighbor since since he was 6 years old. I assume that her age was similar since they were both about to graduate at the same time. They probably were 6 at the same time. But he's chasing the bus, trying to get him to stop, and he's pounding on the side saying, stop the bus, because apparently the school's far enough away that he's not going to get there if he doesn't get a ride. And so MJ comes up to the bus driver and says, he's been chasing you for 3 blocks or however many blocks. He goes, stop the bus. And she goes back and sits down with her boyfriend, and he comes on the bus and nobody lets him sit down. And they go, don't even think about it, or no way, Parker, you're not sitting here. And MJ sort of doesn't really look at him. And that's why the first time I saw it, I thought it was like, that's kind of callous for someone who was his neighbor for so long. But she did get the bus driver to stop. So I was corrected. When I watched it a second time, I was like, oh, I was wrong about that. She cared enough
And
to tell
even
the
the
bus
bus driver was laughing at him.
Well,
Yeah.
he was laughing at him, and later when he leaves him, he didn't even slow down. He just drove right past the bus stop. So I watched that. The second bus stop when he has the sticky hands and he pulls the poster off of the side of the bus because he doesn't know how to control his sticky powers. The bus driver never even slowed down once. It wasn't that he was late for the bus stop. It was like apparently that's
Right, the bus driver is right.
the
Well,
running
That's
gag.
what I got from it.
and unfortunately, Peter didn't have his moment with MJ the way that Forrest Gump had with Jenny.
Yeah,
So he
but-
didn't even give the chance to sit next to his love to form a friendship yet.
Ginny,
Jenny,
I miss you, Ginny. So so a bully, one of Flash Thompson, the bad guy who's got his arm around the girl that Peter likes, one of the bullies trips Peter and he lands on his face on the bus. And that's our introduction to our hero, who is apparently some sort of a geeky nerd who misses the bus and gets bullied by bullies. And that's the beginning of him going to school. Anyone want to talk about that before we move on?
Yep.
no. Other than what it does is just what you said. Introduces a character who obviously is not popular, and doesn't have a friend at all, at least nearby where he lives. So nobody to be his confidant.
Well, I will say that bus drivers aren't always picking on kids. Sometimes bus drivers are heroes too. And a quick story about that is, I don't know if it was Theron, if you were getting your butt pounded by the town bully, if it was the same event or not, but the town bully, the street bully was being a snudge.
Talking about
And
Ricky?
no, I was thinking it was Mark Karam or
Oh.
something. But anyway, so we're throwing names out and it's all good. It's not slander if it really happened. Anyway,
That's right.
he was being a snudge and the bus driver is yelling for him to sit down because he knew that he was picking on kids, but he really, from driving, there's not much you can do when bullies are being bullies. They're just, it's part of fact of life, I guess. But he told him to sit down, he wouldn't sit down, so he basically slammed on the brakes. And he goes running down the aisle as fast as he can to keep his feet under him, and he face plants right into the area where you pull the door handle open. There was a giant radiator there, and he just headbutted, slammed right into that radiator, and everyone was kind of like cheering, like, yay. Yeah, the bus driver's a hero. But you get what
He
you
was
get.
definitely our Flash.
Yeah, karma's a bitch, you know.
I don't
anyhow,
remember that.
Yeah, he got a good nod on his head for that.
I remember
The
you
bus
telling
driver.
me about it, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, I won't go into it too much more because it's not slander, but it's still, you don't need to tell stories of all the childhood stories.
Well, you
with
didn't have
names
to give the last name either.
Huh?
You didn't have to give the last name either. You could just said Mark.
I know, but Chris knew
Oh,
exactly
everybody
what I
knew.
was talking about as soon as I
I knew
said
exactly what you were talking about.
it. Yeah,
I could have guessed.
If there are a bunch of people in town watching, they can blame you because we don't live there anymore. But all right. So they go to Columbia University on a field trip, and this isn't the whole bus of students that were in the first scene, but it seems like they're all in the same class apparently because a lot of the same chuckleheads from that bus ride are also on this field trip. And they're walking up to the some genetic research lab at Columbia University, and we switch to Norman Osborn in a limousine bringing his son Harry to the field trip in a limo. And
Can I
Yep.
interject?
Sure.
It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie because I felt it. Is when right before that happens, right after the camera switches to Columbia. Peter's standing there looking nerdy. MJ's standing there looking Peter's direction. And she picks her hand up and does a little wave. And he's like, me? And then he does a little wave. And then the two girls that she was actually waving to were standing behind her. I think we've all done that. We've all thought somebody was waving at us. And we're like, hey, only to find out that no, it wasn't us at all. I thought that was hysterical. I felt his pain, his embarrassment.
Sam Raimi is a geek himself, I'm sure it happened to him. So I'm sure that was his reasoning for putting that in there.
Pulling from life experience, I'm sure.
It was interesting that when she did that, she didn't even see him there waving. It was like she only saw the girls and, oh, hey, how you doing? And then like he's sitting there going, I guess they weren't waving at me. So he didn't have to be embarrassed because they didn't even see him doing it, or at least they
didn't even acknowledge him. Yeah.
Like in, did you ever see? I'm sure you did because you're in New York, but you saw Snow Day.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a great movie. I love it. But
it is a great movie.
The nerd in Snow Day going after the girl who's popular walks up to the table in the restaurant and stands there and stands there and stands there, and they don't even acknowledge that it even exists. They are oblivious to his entire presence. So, anyway, yeah. Would you like to tell us some more? How does that make you feel, Chris?
We need more time.
That's
a lot more time.
This is therapy. It's not us talking about movies. This is therapy.
Every time you make a statement, I'll ask you the same word. I'll name the question so that you're like.
Just be careful. I might answer you.
How does that make you feel?
What do you mean by you might answer? Obviously, we got some pent up frustration. Hopefully, by the end of the movie, Chris will be comfortable enough to tell us what his.
I'll work it out.
Yeah. What are you doing on the ground? I'm just going to collect my thoughts. Yeah, work shit out. Yeah, work shit out. From the replacements. I can't
I
erase.
work best in the fetal position.
I'm not even going to go there. We're going to keep this kid friendly.
Okay. So Harry pulls up in the rolls and
Yes.
doesn't want the other public school kids to see him.
Yeah, I actually feel for him a little bit in the way. So you watch this a couple times so that you can give a good commentary on it. You don't want to just try and do it from a vague memory. And the notes I took on it, and then I watch my notes as I'm watching it again, lead me to pick out the parts where I got it wrong the first time when I did the analysis. And I think he honestly, like, Dad, these kids are public school kids, and here I am driving up in a very expensive limousine being dropped off, and it's like I just don't feel comfortable doing it. And he was being honest, and he was actually giving Dad a good explanation of why it makes him uncomfortable. And Norman is so callous to his son and what his son's feeling. He goes, "Well, it's your own fault. You failed out of every private school I sent you to. You're such a failure." And it's like it's not my fault. You can't even make it in a school that I could pay for you to go to, but you can't even stay there. And he's like, "It's not that, Dad. He didn't want to be at those schools either. It wasn't that he failed out per se. He probably failed out on purpose. It sounds like." But his father absolutely did not listen to, care, or empathize at all with anything Harry was saying, which is part of, I guess, Norman's character flaw, which we'll talk about. He's got several character flaws, but one of them is that he completely is not in tune with his own son at all. But so something that we'll see is that part of the problem is that Harry's not a scientist or a prodigy like his father is. And apparently the family business, because he's founded Oscorp, and Oscorp is huge, and it's one of the leading military suppliers to the military. And his father's in charge of that. And he apparently has no interest or no aptitude for that at all. So his father, who does nanotechnology and stuff, and his kid can't even pass high school subjects. So lots of disappointment from the dad, lots of feeling like his dad doesn't think that he's worthy from the son. So sad, sad, sad. So they bump into Peter before they go in, and he's like, "Oh, Dad, this is Peter." And he goes, "Oh, I know who your dad is. I read all your papers on nanotechnology or whatever." And Norman's like, "You did? Did you understand it?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, it was great. I did a paper on it, whatever." And so Norman absolutely warms up to Peter instantly and starts being empathetic with him, because now the things that Norman values, Peter embodies, and therefore he treats Peter the way that he should have treated his own son so far. And we're only in the very first scene of the whole movie. And you can see the hurt a little bit from Harry, if you pay attention, how his dad's all goo goo gaga over Peter and Peter's intellect and Peter's interests and not his own.
So how did that make you feel, Chris?
I'm not ready to talk about it yet.
Still
Hey,
too open a wound?
I remember fourth grade was a challenging 3 years, you know. I can
don't talk about that either.
So, all right. So they go inside, and there's some teasing going on with the bullies picking on Peter. And Harry, who's Peter's friend, actually sticks up for him and goes, "Knock it off." And he goes, "Or what? Is your daddy going to fire my daddy?" You know, because apparently Oscorp is probably a leading employer for the region. And Flash is like, "What are you going to do to me?" You know. And the teacher, I guess it's Dr. Connors, maybe? Is that the name of the teacher?
No, just a random teacher, actually.
Okay, because there's a Dr. Connors mentioned in there somewhere, because Peter gets fired from his job from Dr. Connors. I didn't know if it was that. Oh, I guess he's just a high school teacher.
Yep.
Not that that's. I'm not saying that in a derogatory way. It's just as far as the
He was a
significance.
generic teacher.
He was a high school teacher. So he comes up and he's whispering to him. He's like, the next person who talks will fail my course. I shit you not. You know, he didn't actually say, I shit you not. He's like, I kid you not. But it
Definitely
sounded like,
implied.
it's like, I shit you not. The next person who talks, and, you know. So, and it typically, like a teacher who can't control the kids, people whisper through the whole tour. And he goes, let me talk to you about showing respect. And he walks him off, but he didn't fail him. He gave out that warning, but you know, ineffective parent figures that give warnings to kids and don't follow through don't get respected, I guess. So anyway, so we get this nerd arachnid scientist who's describing all these spider species and their abilities. And it's funny that all the things that she seems to be saying are like precognition teasers of things you're going to see that Peter gets powers. And it actually becomes more specific than that in a second. But they talk a lot about one of the spiders having the ability to blend in to its environment by changing colors. And Peter actually gives Harry that piece of trivia. And Harry's like, why do you think that I would want to know that? And he's like, who wouldn't want to know that, you know? So they're like, oh, hey, there's MJ. He goes, go up and talk to her. And Peter's like, I ain't going to go talk to her. He's like, got a crush, but he won't go up to talk to her. And he
So,
goes, you go and talk to her. And so Harry goes, okay. So he goes to talk to her. Yeah.
the interesting thing about the fact that Harry and Peter are friends is Peter is the smart one. Harry's um, just not popular. Now, I don't know if it was not popular yet. I mean, he didn't throw his money around, and he could have probably after getting thrown out of the other schools.
He's the new kid, I think.
So,
Also,
and of course, since the geek crowd, that the nerd geek crowd that I was definitely part of, we were probably a little more accepting. So that's probably, if he was brand new, Peter was probably the first person to actually say something to him, and they became friends. But they obviously don't have a whole lot in common, other than
well,
just a liking for each other.
they don't specifically say it, but unless it's just Peter telling Harry all about everything in life, including his crushes when he was 6 years old, Harry knows an awful lot about Peter's childhood as well. It's possible that maybe he just knows Peter that well and they've shared everything and he knows it that way. But it could be that they were friends and it doesn't go into why Peter's with Aunt May and Uncle Ben and why he knows Harry longer than anyone else or why he'd be friends with a rich kid from a neighborhood that's obviously like a almost a inner city New Jersey kind of neighborhood, even though it's in New York City, obviously. But it's not obvious, but it doesn't really matter to the storyline, except that he knows a lot about Peter. He sticks up for Peter, and Peter, I think, helps him with his homework because later in another scene, he's kind of like, "I'm lost. Like I need you." Like Peter provides something for Harry that Harry needs, and apparently, it would say a lot to Peter as being not only empathetic but merciful in talking to someone at the level that needed the help that Harry needs, even though he can understand stuff probably at a doctorate level as far as science goes. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And did you notice that as they're talking about each spider and describing the abilities of each one, that each spider has a different color scheme, and the color scheme of the spider that has the invisibility is black and white, like the comic book iteration of Spider-Man that had the invisibility power.
no,
Did
didn't
not see
catch
that.
that. Good catch.
Yeah.
Good catch. But
I
I
watched it
do
like
notice,
3 times in the last couple days. So
I mean, this opens up a lot of tie-ins to the Spider-Verse, I guess, because when they go to, well, before I get to that really quick, I'll just say that Harry has the balls to go and talk to MJ because Peter sort of dared him to. I don't want to go talk to her. You talk to her. He goes, okay, I'll go talk to her. And he goes in and he tries to sound smart like Harry, like Peter, and he gives MJ the exact same trivia about the defense mechanism of spiders that disappear into their background that Peter gave him. So he was trying to make himself sound smart. I don't know if he pulled it off because he was like, "Look at those little nasty buggers," and she goes, "I love spiders." He goes, "Oh, so do I." And she's like, "You just call them nasty buggers, and now you like them? It's because you're obviously hitting on me or something." But um, he gives the trivia whether she agrees with it that it came from his mind or not. Peter's kind of upset that he just turned around his trivia and used it to impress the girl that he likes. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah, gave away his pickup line.
Yeah. So as far as the Spider-Verse goes, this is where the scientist says that they've done some work and genetically modified some spiders by combining 3 spiders apparently at a time into individual spiders made up of those 3 spiders, and it actually rewrites their genetic code into some new species when that happens. And there's 15 of them sitting right over there. And MJ, like Rain Man, sits there and goes, there's 14, you know, and it's like
55, 55, 55. Yeah, it's missing 3.
Wapner's on at 5. There's 14. There's 14. There's one not there. It's definitely one not there. And
Definitely.
She goes, "Oh, the scientists must be like working with that one or something." It's like, yeah, or they left the lid open and it's somewhere in the room, perhaps. But so Peter starts taking pictures of MJ, and he's kind of like, for the paper, it's probably going to be a screensaver that he goes back to his room with his experiments that Uncle Ben says, "You and your experiments in your room," all these pictures he takes of MJ. For the
I
paper?
think he's tired of having side view pictures, since all he can see from his window is her looking into the mirror. So
He
it's
is
always
a
a side
creeper.
view.
We'll talk
He is.
about that. He is a creeper. The creeper scenes are coming. I mean, it's not even funny, creeper, because she has no idea, or she would wave, and she's lived next to him for how many years, and we'll get to it in a second. So anyway, while he's taking pictures and flirting with the girl, the spider comes down from where it was up on the web above Peter's head that had escaped from the 15 that are genetically new species modified from 3 spiders each or whatever. And it comes down and it lands on his hand, and everyone who's got an arachnophobia problem are like, ooh, 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 I don't want to watch. And all of a sudden it zooms in like this and goes, junk, and it bites on his hand. And you're kind of like, that's like, didn't need to see that, now I'll never sleep again kind of thing. But it bites him and he goes, ugh, and he looks down and he sees it run away, and it's this red and blue spider. And
All right.
you would think with his intellect that he might realize that that wasn't a normal spider because they don't normally look blue and red like that.
Right.
But,
So that spider was actually a black widow. They put a little cap on its abdomen that they were able to paint. But I don't know. I'm not sure I'd want a black widow landing on my hand. I'm sure that was the Wrangler's hand, but yeah, that's just creepy and weird. And so any of the scenes where you actually see it crawling and landing on his hand and crawling a little bit, not the one
They've
that
got all
actually is
these-
coming down.
There's all these snake shows now, and it shows, oh, there's a black mamba, watch. And it's like, and he puts it to his arm, and it's like, why? Why do you like, no, it's good. If you don't get treated within an hour, you're dead. It's like, dude, why you want to get bit on purpose? I'm not a spider person. You cannot bite my hand for the movie. I don't care how much money you give me. It's just not gonna. Oh yeah, I'll just wait. That good on you, spider. Do you see the size of that spider? It sounds like the Australian guy. Good on you,
Crocodile
spider.
Hunter.
That was a good one.
Yep.
He's like, oh, look at that, swelling up really big and stuff, and it's like, good job, spider. It's like.
So
no.
as Pete's looking down and then he walks away, it actually shows on the monitor behind him that exact spider with that exact configuration on the back, that coloring, and then it goes through and shows what of the 3 spiders, what the trait is that that particular spider got, and
Yes.
and that was color coded. So the first one, which was a jumping spider, it was a well, I actually have the Latin, but it was specifically there for I think it was supposed to be jump, But they have the red one is web, tensile strength, and spider strength. The second one, which is jumping speed, and the third one is spider sense, precognition, and speed. So I don't know why they multiplied the speed in there, but so it actually told you as it was showing the DNA strand and then linking them all together. It was actually showing you what parts of that particular spider had in its abilities. I thought that was kind of neat that it just
and
whatever process
I used to make the 3 spiders combine into the other one, apparently its ability is still within that spider to do that again. Because when it bites Peter, its DNA merges with him and he becomes a new species of part man, part spider, based on their logic that they present. But they list it, and I looked as soon as I saw that list, I saw that changing your colors to blend into your environment as a defensive tactic was not one of the powers that the red and the blue spider had. But with the Spider-Verse going on, there are 14 other ones. 14, definitely 14. No. Wapner's on at 5.
Yep.
Definitely 14 more that can make spider people. All right. All right, so I've got these big red bubbles on my timeline, and some of them say the moral of the story. So the moral of the story so far is, if you're flirting with a girl like a little love-bitten bitch, you get bit by a spider and your DNA gets rewritten into a new species. So don't do that.
That old trope.
Oh man, if they didn't overuse that so much, that would probably be a pretty good story.
All right.
And then it flashes to Oscorp, and they're showing the glider. Am I the only one that thought that it was strange that the pilot
Bald?
had like a weird, more than bald, weird looking head?
Yeah, he looked almost alien.
I think
like, was he supposed to be one of the treated subjects?
I don't think so. I think he had some mind control probes or something as part of a headset, which was helping him do the glide. So I think that what turns out to be Green Goblin's helmet in this movie has controls in the helmet. Probably like think about the Russian word for missile and it'll fire.
The Firefox attitude control. Yeah,
maybe it's Elon Musk's Neuralink.
Yeah. Well, so far you get a bunch of rich guys sitting on a sailboat and they can get the rudder to tack left or tack right, and that's about all they've been able to figure out. You just look at the brainwaves until thinking about something makes one change and go, okay, that's one we'll monitor. And they put the little electrodes on your forehead and go, watch this. And all of a sudden the boom shifts over and takes your head off because you forgot to duck because someone turned the boat from his mind without saying like, helms alee, thunk, hits you in the head. Anyway, there are some mind control things that people are working on. Once you figure out a brainwave that you can monitor that changes by will, now you can use that as a trigger if you monitor that particular brainwave, I guess. I mean, they've got those Jedi Force levitation games, things you can buy that they used to sell. I don't know what it is that they check, but if you concentrate hard enough and your blood vessel starts beating because you're trying so hard, maybe it goes by blood pressure. Who knows? But yeah, so they're talking to the General Slocum, and having watched this a couple times, I pick up more every time I watch it. It seems that Norman is being honest that out of maybe 500 test subjects that got this serum, one of them went insane and had what does he say? He had extreme violence, aggression, and insanity as an outcome. And the general's like, really? And Norman's like, that was one out of like many. And he goes, well, Dr. Strom, because he already hates Norman. You find out that the general hates Norman from day one. So he goes, well, Dr. Strom, what do you think we ought to do? And he goes, I think we ought to go right back to formula and start over. And Norman's like, what the? We're
Yeah.
a company that builds stuff for the military, and you want to go back to formula in front of the general? Are you freaking stupid? So whether or not that was the way it should have gone, honestly, I mean, with a couple more tests, if they had 2 more weeks, like Strom tries to argue for a couple more weeks, but they don't have 2 weeks because this general wants to shit can Oscorp already, and it's got this like Quest aeronautical contract set up, and he's just looking for an excuse. He goes, well, if you don't have this tested on a human subject in 2 weeks, we're just going to give the contract to the exoskeleton project over at Quest. And so there's a lot of pressure there. So it's understandable what happens when Norman's going to try and test it on himself or move it up faster than maybe he should. But there's enough reason to believe that it might have worked. If there's like 500 or some odd tests and only one of them, the thing that went insane, maybe there's other factors that cause that to happen other than the fact that the formula's bad. So Norman's obviously trying to not get the whole program canceled. And here's a moron Strom who probably spent more time in a lab than with people, doesn't know how to react with people at all. And he goes, oh, no, we got to go back to formula. And it's like, thanks, dickhead. You kind of ruined it for everybody in the building. Those were our jobs. When you
As an adult, that does hit you a lot harder than if you're watching it as a young person. As a young person, you're like, oh, I got to scratch it. As an adult, you're mentally calculating all the time and energy and resources that went into it and how losing your funding could affect everybody's lives and the whole facility. It means layoffs and closing down the departments, and it's a big deal.
Well, when you see
A hell of a threat.
when you see the glider, when they walk in, the glider's being flown by this guy, and obviously the general's not interested in that, and the guy's wearing some kind of armor, and he doesn't seem interested in that, but these guys might have been like Lockheed Martin competing with Martin Marietta or something, or no, Lockheed Martin Marietta is the same company.
Well, it was Lockheed Martin, then it was Martin Marietta, so they combined. But yes, you're right at the time.
But when you're competing, I mean, that might have been their exoskeleton entry that can fly and that has armor, but the general didn't care about that. So now they're trying to look at the super soldier thing. And so they're already lost the competition, apparently, to Quest Aerospace for the guy who's going to take off in the exo armor and something that flies, which is probably the alternative to that green flying glider guy. And now Strom messes it up by saying we got to go back to the beginning, and the general's like, "Oh, no problem. See ya, Oscorp. I'm going to go with the other guy." So it's like Norm was obviously upset about that. So there's tons of micro scenes. So you have like 27 scenes in the first hour of the movie. There's just like little tiny scenes, and you look, and it's like 2 minutes have gone by, and you've had like 4 scenes, and you're like, "Holy cow!"
Mm-hmm.
So as far as writing a timeline down and keeping track of what's going on in the movie, there's a lot of columns that start on top with how the scene goes, and then all my comments underneath. That's my problem, I guess. Welcome to my world.
Doesn't seem like my problem.
Tell me again how that's my problem. All right, so the next scene we come to, unless anyone wants to talk more about the lab. Cricket.
Well,
Okay.
I thought that that the glider was cool. I don't know why the general would be that much of an ass about it. It was really cool, and it seems much more maneuverable than that locust-looking armor that Quest has later.
It's the same thing like Stark, the moron who is the competitor for Stark in Iron
Hammer.
Man 2
Hammer
or 3. Yeah, Hammer Industries.
with AIM.
I mean, if you look at it, it looks like it's like 2 legs with a pregnant belly that reaches all the way down to the ground, and it's a big bubble with a guy in it. It doesn't look sleek. It doesn't look like the drop ships from the Aliens movies. It doesn't look like really cool at all. If you've played any kind of mech warrior games or Robotech kind of games, I was like, I've seen a lot of mechs, and that didn't look very mechy at all.
Yeah,
But-
it didn't even look like Starship Troopers. Like Heinlein had described those mech armors for Starship Troopers in the book. I thought
Well, you could even,
that would be cool, but no, this was just static and not like it did anything.
yeah.
I don't.
But who knows? Maybe it's a command and control. You hover outside the battlefield and call the shots, kind of like the Kiowa Warrior mini helicopters with a big bubble on top. That's like a radar, and they like zip in and out of the battlefield and direct what's going on. Have a couple officers in it, but maybe who knows? Anyway, so we switch here, unless I guess I'll talk about it later. Okay, we'll switch to Uncle Ben and Aunt May talking to each other about how he just got laid off, and he's a old-fashioned electrician that kind of like the only thing he knows, and they're going through the newspaper looking for more jobs, and there's analysts to talk about jobs even, and he's like, wow, I don't know how anyone can keep up with all this now because he's so old-fashioned or whatever, but Aunt May is kind of like,
it was a pretty good line because he's talking about everything was computerized, computer programmer, computer this, computer analyst, and that's when he said, what, now even computers need analysts?
yeah.
So, Chris, how do you feel about that?
It didn't go past me.
What do you mean when you say it didn't go past me? All right. So the one thing that Aunt May says is that we are survivors and we have survived tough times before. So maybe you're an electrician who's out of job. Maybe it's hard to find another job, but we have experience in surviving at lean times and we're going to figure this out, which is a good quality. And it seems that Uncle Ben has a lot of good qualities, and we're going to talk about that, I guess, because he's more of an ideal father and an ideal provider, an ideal husband, and all that. And I couldn't find any flaws in his character. The more I watch it, the more I'm like, Peter was a little shit. He needed a smack in the head for his ingratitude and his attitude, and for being callous about missing appointed times when they were supposed to meet to get things done, and he kind of forgot all about it. It's like Peter is worse than some teenagers in some aspects, and he's maybe better than some, but he had some manners, but he was not as good to them as parents as they deserved, even though they were his aunt and uncle. So anyhow, really good line here. Whoever wrote the comedy relief in this did a good job. Peter comes in the door, and they're like, here's where they're the perfect parents. They're talking about how they're financially strapped. They have to try and get a job. They have to do this. Oh, Peter, how did your day go? How did the tour go? How did all this go? Did you get some food? Are you hungry? Instantly they are nurturing and taking care of Peter the moment he walks in the door. They're instantly no longer talking about their own problems in front of him. They are just focused on him, and they're in tune with anything he says. And it's like, you can't fault them for anything. It's just like, it was the perfect response. It was probably over nurturing. It was kind of like, hey, don't forget to close the door is what you get out of me. And my kids turned out all right, but these guys are like very interested in how
I know your kids. Are you sure they came out all right?
They might be watching this, so they might watch this soon. So I think they turned out all right. They gave me less grief than I gave my parents.
Well, that's for sure.
If you don't have to go boom, it's like, I hope the cops don't come. They haven't done anything like that. We've done stuff like that. So Peter comes in, and the line, which I think was hilarious, says, "Hey, Peter, are you hungry? Would you like a bite?" And he goes, "No, had a bite," because he just got bit by the spider.
That was a very good line.
That was a good line. No thanks. Had a bite. He goes, "I'm not feeling good, so I'm going to go upstairs and go to bed." And they're like, "Oh, okay," and so here's one of the parts that really makes me angry about directors have to sometimes perhaps explain it to the people who are a little slow that, oh yeah, one scene ago, Peter just got bit by a spider that's got special powers. But we'll see him takes off his shirt. He's a scrawny, skinny kid with no shirt on, gets dizzy. He lays down on the ground, and he has these flashbacks of everything that's happened for the first 3 scenes of the movie, just in case you weren't paying attention when he got bit by the spider. Hey, ooh, gene therapy thing going on, and the genes are splicing, and ooh, spider bites him, and here's the scientist talking. Here's MJ. Oh, she's so pretty. Oh, there's the spider. It's like, really? If you weren't paying attention, at least you're back in the movie now because you just got a recap of the last 2 minutes, you know. And so he has all these flashes, and
There's 2 scenes in that. One, the eyeball, is from a Italian horror movie, and in one of the scenes, and I'm not sure which one it was. Oh, I'm getting some echo here.
I don't hear it.
I hear it.
You hear it? Oh, it's gone. Okay.
It's gone.
There was another scene in there was from Darkman. So something in there, Todd. Do you have a copy of Darkman? Because I don't, so I wasn't able to look at it. But one of the scenes in the flash that he had from his dream was actually taken from Darkman. I thought that was interesting.
Darkman had a lot of graphic novel kinds of techniques that they used with the director, where they would flash comic book-like frames with different things going on in order to make it seem like you're watching a movie about a graphic novel. And that sort of visual effect is in there. I don't know where in Peter's flashbacks that skull comes from, but I guess it's just like he's close to death. This could have gone the other way. He might not have made it. Look, here's a picture of a skull. And it's like, okay.
It could have been the skull that came from Darkman, but they literally
Maybe.
took an image from Darkman to for that dream sequence.
There are a lot of head nods to other movies in this movie, or the other movies were head nods to this one. I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg, but there are a lot of references, and I'll mention a couple of them eventually, I guess. But there's lots of play between different movies, and if you watch enough movies, you can go, I know where they got that from, So, but anyway, I thought it was. I do think it's lazy writing when they. Hey, you guys, don't forget, he's going to transform, because remember when we talked about transforming spiders and it was a boring tour and you weren't paying attention? He's going to transform now, just so you know. So thank you for informing us as inept audience goers who don't know what the Spider-Man origin story is. Thank you for having another origin story. Can we have another one? Can we just start again? We're going to go on a rant now about origin stories, because why can't we just pick up a movie where he is the hero and you learn about him as you watch the freaking movie? No, let's start from scratch. Here he is before he had any powers. Ooh, look, a spider bit him and he's turning into a superhero. Anyway,
Well,
rant.
the newest Batman, they didn't make a origin story.
I appreciated it. I like that movie. I really do. I like that movie a lot for lots of reasons. I think they cast the right people for that, and I think the people who were in it did a good job. I was transported into that world, whether you like the world or not. I believed I was in it, and that says a lot about the director, and it says a lot about the production people and the sets to be consistent. And so I was happy. Different movie.
You were going to say
So
something,
anyhow,
Chris?
Nope.
All right.
how does that make you feel, Chris?
I'm working through it.
Okay.
You're not the league's best color man for nothing.
Here, I'm rubbing your shoulders while you're working it out. There you go.
All right. Okay.
All right. So Peter's transforming and turning into a new species, and we switch to a new scene. And now we're going back to Dr. Norman Osborn and Dr. Strom. And they're having a disagreement, but it looks like they're both in the lab and they're about to do something a little rash. And Norman is driving to test the serum on a human subject before it should be tested on a human subject, and he's going to be the human subject. Otherwise, they'll never make their deadline to compete against Quest Aerospace. So he's like, don't be a coward. Risks are part of laboratory science. And sometimes you just got to do things yourself. These are all Norman's thoughts. And Dr. Strom is the voice of reason, perhaps now, even though he's a little inept at talking to the general earlier. And he's like, well, give me 2 weeks and we'll make sure this is safe and we'll do whatever. And he's like, don't have 2 weeks. If we have 2 weeks, we'll lose the contract. So we're going forward. And the funny thing is, you anytime you have a super soldier serum pumped into somebody, you have to take the shirt off because, hey, you got to see muscle mass grow. So they lay down on this table without a shirt on, and William Dafoe gets there, and they fold these metal clamps over his chest, and he's like, oh, cold. It's like his bare chest, and he's in a lab that's probably air conditioned, and this metal thing goes over. He's like, oh, cold. I thought that was kind of funny. But he gets in the chamber.
I wondered when I saw that if it was ad-libbed.
Well,
if it was a real reaction to the stuff being cold.
It might have been
possible. But his reaction here also validates the reaction at the very end, because Norman goes, "Oh," in a scene that you're like, he was expecting something to happen, it didn't happen, and then he understood what was going to happen. He goes, "Oh," but it's just a strange, personal exclamation. It wasn't like it was designed for anybody to hear it. It was like, "Ooh, that's cold." It wasn't designed for Strom to go, "Hey, this is freaking cold." It was just designed as a personal thing, and it kind of lends to Norman's personality coming out as an exclamation that I thought was kind of interesting. Do you know what I'm talking about? The end.
Yes.
All right.
Do we want to wait till you get there to talk about it again?
Well, okay. It's just at the end when he expects Spider-Man to die and Spider-Man doesn't, and he realizes he's going to die.
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh."
Well, it was a little bit of a shock when he was nearly cut in half by the blades too, and that might have been the like. Oh.
Well, it was right before it was right before it hit him.
Before the yeah. All right. So here's a funny thing. They put him in this chamber. It's a pretty big chamber, pretty big window chamber. I don't know what animals they were trying to do this test on, but normally it's like a fish tank. And you put a little rat in there, and then you pump gas into a fish tank. And even if you're going to do people, yeah, they do a pretty good job of making that look bigger than it should be too. But that was a huge room. I sort of did the math. I mean, I'm not a nerd per se that much, but I looked at, like, let's just say 20 foot by 10 foot floor space, and it's about 10 foot tall. That's about, 4,000 cubic feet of frickin' gas to fill that chamber. I was like, you could have made a smaller chamber and saved a little bit of your formula instead of mass producing weapons of mass destruction. I mean, 4,000 cubic feet or whatever it is. I mean, you do that. It's like 20 times 10 is 200, and 200 times another 10 is, I don't know, or times 20 foot tall. Who knows?
It does not at all surprise me that you did the quick math on that.
It didn't surprise you?
It does not surprise me that you did the math on that.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me at all if someone pulled out a calculator and proved that I can't do math, because I might just be pulling it out of my butt. But it's a big space, and it struck me as funny that they had to fill the whole space with gas in order for it to give him the exposure. But as the stuff's going up, you see the gas come out by his feet, and Willem Dafoe does a really good job, a character actor, being, no, we got to do this. We're going to, sometimes you got to take risks, and sometimes you got to, like, oh shit, here comes that green gas. And he has a little bit of a look of, this might not go well as the gas is coming up. And it's like, too late now, man. Take a deep breath, because you're going to be breathing it now. And so he starts convulsing, and we lose sight of him behind the green gas, but you can hear him screaming, and it's not so good. So Dr. Strom's like, oh my God, I got to vent the chamber. And so he vents the chamber. He goes, I almost had to stick myself in the heart with this thing. Oh, wrong movie. That's The Rock.
Yeah.
Anyway, So they vent the chamber, and it looks like he's dead. And Strom goes in and tries to revive him. Norman, come on, don't die. And he wakes up and grabs Strom by the neck, and he's like, "Back to formula." It's like obviously the violence, insanity, and aggression has been that 1 in 500 has actually taken effect on Norman, and whatever precondition he had, which triggered the worst response you could get from that formula, it has been triggered in Norman, and he chokes and kills Strom. So not a great loss, I guess. Other than
he was a bit of a sociopath to begin with.
Yeah.
Even when he drank the catalyst, he went all medieval. Drank the catalyst and then shattered the glass jar on the ground.
Well,
that
he
was
was
a little dramatic.
That was throwing caution to the wind, like the guy who watches the barge with all the ammunition blow up while they're at the party, and takes a wine, drinks it, and throws the glass away because the bad guys just blew up our ammo. Oh well, take a drink.
Right.
So he kind of does that. Good catch there. Anything else you want to talk about that transformation scene, or other transformation scenes you've seen, or how does that make you feel, Chris? From your personal experience, transformation.
I found that it wasn't dissimilar to my own transformation.
Well, actually, you did have a moment in your life that you told us about in a different stream, which was you were stuck, and that bit of solder fell into your eye.
Oh, this is true.
So, as far as that goes, you have personal experience of being locked in a space and having something happen to you. So, how does that make you feel?
Both unnerving and extremely painful. Yeah.
There we go. So now we know firsthand.
When you hear your eyeball sizzle, it changes the way you look at life.
I would imagine.
At least you can still look at life with that eye.
Yep. It didn't help my color vision.
So what color is Spider-Man's suit?
Yellowish for a while.
What color is Spider-Man's suit? Is it gray or?
I'll tell you what. It is blue and red. But I'll tell you that my hat is off to the Spider-Man franchise of video games, because they were very kind to those who are color challenged, because they have colorblind settings that are actually effective.
Wow, nice.
So, yes. So the blue and red contrasting.
It's all gray.
Cool. It's really attractive to me, blue and red, because the receptors for blue and red in my eyes are so.
How about the way
off?
How about the way
it feels like a hug? It's a visual hug.
Do you like the way?
No, it is. It's like a visual hug. Because the difference in the transmission rates between the blue and the red hitting your brain, to me, it makes it look kind of psychedelic. So, like, the blue seems to strobe if I look at the outfit. So, yeah, I'm partial to Spider-Man anyway.
All right. I wish it was visually stimulating to me as it is to you. That's pretty cool.
Be jealous. Be jealous.
Very jealous.
Very jealous, yes. All right. We're changing scenes again because we change scenes every 30 seconds. So we talk about it for 4 minutes. And Peter wakes up with Spidey powers. So we don't know what they are yet quite, although we kind of had a precog of what they were going to be. And the first thing we see is that he's definitely not a skinny, scrawny kid anymore. He does enough stomach flexing in one scene to pretty much put most stomach flexors to shame, because they keep going back to it, and you have to actually think about moving your stomach that way. It's not just because you're standing prone and your stomach's doing this kind of thing all the time. He's actually was giving a little show. Hey, check out the show, check out the show. Anyway, so he gets some muscle mass and he's kind of impressed. He doesn't need glasses. He holds them up and he's like, It's better without the glasses, so good on him for that. I might get bit by a spider tomorrow to see if I can see better. And they're like, Peter, how you doing in there? You okay? It's like, because it seems like you've changed. He's like, change? Yeah, big change, So
Which was also funny because he's standing there flexing. She says that. He looks down. Big change.
Didn't just look down. He actually
Not
pulled
necessarily just his abs. Yes.
He pulled his pants out to look.
And said, big change. And then looks across the street and sees MJ.
Who,
yeah, this is the creeper scene.
It was Creeper.
who knew that spiders, the enhancement would happen that way to him? Who knew that spiders were so well endowed?
You could only hope.
Maybe it's the mandibles. He's got the snapping.
He's got claspers.
You were just trying to figure out where the thorax went. Oh, now we know.
It's the scene from Harry Potter, the sixth one where Aragog's dead, and Harry goes.
All
Just
right.
imagine such things.
I was in the Navy, and I may have seen some things in movies that shouldn't have necessarily seen, and maybe some off camera conversation could be had about this again, but we'll just let it go for now. So Peter's looking out the window at MJ, who seems to be oblivious that she can be seen through her window by anyone, because she doesn't look out the window. She doesn't wave at Peter. She doesn't acknowledge that she has ever realized that anyone's looking at her through a window. But Peter the Creeper is pretty much checking her out. And he seems to check himself out again after that, like, yeah, this is going to work out, because now I'm going to get the girl, because she's going to notice this change. So he comes downstairs and he runs across the wall and jumps over the banister. And Uncle Ben's surprised because he went to bed looking like he was hungover or something. And he goes, I thought you were sick. And he goes, I got better.
They actually measured it all out for that set, so that Toby would be able to do that walk across the wall. They actually took the time to figure out exactly how the distance they would need from him hitting the banister with his left hand and walking across the wall.
It was perfect.
He made it look easy, and it apparently was made to look easy. So that makes sense.
Sorry to kill the movie magic on that.
Oh, no, I'm so deflated in what my thoughts of this movie, but
how did that make you feel, Chris? All right.
Well, that part was just fine.
The deflated part. That's what it means.
Yeah.
All right, so Uncle Ben's like, hey, we're going to paint out this room later on, and I need you to come by to help me do it. He goes, so don't be late. And Peter goes, well, don't start without me. And he goes, and don't start with me. They got their little thing where apparently they've exchanged little quips that make them in terms
Again,
of
showing what a
terms of endearment,
showing what a loving parental figure he really was.
Yeah. All right. Instantly, we go back to the same Peter we know, and the school bus driver doesn't even slow down, and he drives past Peter at the bus stop, who runs after the bus. It didn't look like he even slowed down at all. It looked like he was just driving past. And Peter's like, stop, come on, stop. And, well, actually, before this happened, he was trying to talk to MJ, and he was talking to her in his brain as if he was having a conversation with her, because she just had an abusive relationship moment with her dad, who is screaming at her as they went out the front door, and Peter heard that, and she's just upset. And
it was basically him telling her that she was as useless as her mother.
Yeah, you're trash just like her, is what he says. So she's upset and broken with the normal abuse she's been getting from her father mostly. And she's walking kind of forlorn towards the bus stop, it looks like. And Peter's trying to say, MJ, hey, how's it going, or whatever, and was going to try and do all these scenarios in his head, and he's saying them softly, but she can't hear him. And all of a sudden, a car comes up, and it's a car convertible with a bunch of her girlfriends, and she's like, oh, hey, and she jumps in the car, and they drive off, and Peter's kind of like, okay, bye,
It's
talk to you later.
probably a good thing he didn't catch up with her, because very inopportune time. It would have probably gone badly with her not respecting him, trying to make a situation that she just went through into an opportune moment for him to hit on her. Probably wouldn't have gone
Yeah.
over that well.
Probably not. So whether he was out of position because he was watching this happen, which might not have exactly been at the bus stop, or whether the bus just didn't stop, the bus takes off without him. He runs after it, tries to get him to stop. You can hear all the kids laughing at him inside the bus as he's trying. He puts his hand on the side of the bus to knock on it to let the bus driver know, and the poster, the spirit poster on the side of the bus, sticks to his sticky hands and peels off the bus. And he's looking at this big bundle of poster in his hands now, and the bus goes off, and he misses the bus because of that. And he looks at his hand, and he's like, He doesn't do the close-in look. He just does the basically, why did that stick to my hands? But he missed the bus. We do a quick scene change. If anyone doesn't want to talk about that missed bus scene at all, I'll assume you're going to interrupt me if you have something to say. Otherwise, we'll move through some of these easy scenes. Harry finds his dad, Norman, unconscious on the floor in the Norman mansion. And they really did this scene very well. I think this is one of the better scenes in the effect that they caused. And he's like groggy, everything's slow motion. I don't know what happened. It's like, Dad, what happened? Have you been here all night? What's going on? He goes, I don't know. Last night I was like, and it shows you a flash of bright light and intense music flash. And you're like, holy shit, this is going to be like a horror movie or something. Cause it was a horror movie kind of make you jump scene. And they did a good job. And I thought they did a great build up to it, because it's kind of like, I don't know, I don't feel so, and it's like, holy cow. It's like, when you watch the windy road on the country, and there's like a sheep or something, and all of a sudden you see and you have the screamer on the screen that makes you jump in the air. It's kind of like that.
It's
And
it's the jump scares that you always like, because you involve yourself so much in the movie that you invest yourself so much into the movie that when those things come out at you like always do a big jump on it.
More than anyone I know, I'm fully bought into a movie. I engulf my whole senses into what I'm watching. And when there's, even in like Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, which is one of my favorite movies, there's a computer screen or a computer that shifts in this basement where the evil entity is in this revolving column of ooze, whatever, and it's growing in power, and it's starting to affect things outside of the tube that it's in. And someone goes down, and it's a quiet basement in the bottom of some old church, and there's drippy noises and things, and they're looking, and all of a sudden the computer monitor jumps, and I jump every single time. I've seen that movie like 25 times, and I still jump every single time. I'm susceptible to that, I guess. That's not good.
No, you're good.
Okay. So I jumped. That was good. The people from the Oscorp are coming in. It's like, Norman, is he in here? And he goes, he's not feeling good. Go away, Harry says. And they come in anyways. Like, someone broke into the lab and they stole the glider, and it's missing. And somebody killed Dr. Strom. Oh, the flight suit. They say the flight suit and the glider are missing, and Dr. Strom is dead. And it's like, goodness. And then it changes scenes again. So that's just a quick keep you on track with the transformation from the exposure to the super serum that Norman Osborn just had. His degradation happens over time, and to accentuate the degradation of his mind, they have a lot of quick scenes just to keep you up with how that's going. We go to one of the more memorable scenes of this movie because it leads to the confrontation between Flash and Spidey that happens in every single Spidey story, pretty much. And Peter's in the cafeteria, and his spider senses are becoming manifest, and he sees a slippery spot picture in his head and MJ slipping on it before she does. And as she slips on it with a whole tray full of food, and now the food goes flying in the air in a bunch of different directions, he catches her, catches the tray, and then catches every bit of the food that went flying through the air so that the tray's got it all on there. And MJ's like,
Toby actually did that.
That was cool. Fast reflexes.
They
You know,
they stuck the tray to his hand with adhesive, and with him holding on to her, they dropping all the food pieces, he actually caught all the food pieces. And then they sped up the video, of course, that it was that much faster. But
yeah.
According to Kirsten Dunst, that was Toby actually catching all those things.
Well, he wasn't out of shape and he wasn't uncoordinated as an actor.
Well,
So,
you can't be if you're going to be Spider-Man. I mean, how could you possibly be an actor being Spider-Man and not have some physicality to you?
He's not Tom Holland, acrobatic crazy, but he was definitely he was pretty well cast for Spider-Man. Plus, Spider-Man's supposed to be your average everyday kid that this happens to, not some super jock or anything.
No, he was Jen's mom's favorite Spider-Man. She absolutely loved him.
I actually think Garfield's my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, I like him, and I like the story. I like Gwen, and I like Gwen's father. I thought they did a good job with it. I'm happy that the Spider-Verse includes all these different Spider-Men.
I don't know if I have a favorite because they all have different aspects I like. I can tell you my favorite Spider-Man movie is 2.
Yeah,
Jen will tell you I actually cry when
you said that to me earlier.
Yeah, so
well, when there's a death of a character, they do a pretty good job of making it traumatic for the audience. I guess it's hard not to do that, I suppose. And if you're really vested in it, then you really feel it. I was watching some movies the other day. Let me think of what it was. I'll think of it later, but I was watching a movie and I knew the person was going to die because I'd seen it before, and I watch it and I was like, it still gets me every time because you're 100% invested in the character. When the character has a moment or dies, you can get in on it, Maybe it's this is being made up as I speak, so I don't know, but being empathetic to the movie, allowing the movie to have your attention like you would give someone attention that you're really paying attention to. That's something that I do to movies. And so maybe it's an empathy to the movie. I don't know if that's a thing. But
what Jen always finds interesting is it's not even the death of a character or anything like that. It's Spider-Man, just his story arc. I actually get so invested in his story arc that when he gets the girl in the end, and the whole saving everybody on the tram by flicking his webs out, and he collapses, but they catch him. I mean, just spectacular.
Yeah, well,
there's a couple of times in that movie I cry.
I really enjoy when a hero goes beyond his power, even though he knows it's going to destroy him by doing it, and maybe he lives through it, but it was still his willingness to do it that it tugs on the heartstrings, because you can feel the self-sacrifice in that, and sacrifice is the answer to chaos. Sacrifice is the answer to um, everything, because it's giving up something for a better future. And it may not be his future, but it'd be everyone else's future. And that's always the hero story. So I enjoy that as well. I can see Chris is giving me some smiles because he knows I listen to Jordan Peterson. So he knows I'm getting all this crap from him, and that it's not just coming from Todd's spontaneous brain function. But when you hear truth, I'll give Jordan Peterson tons of credit, but when you hear truth, you know it,
Right.
and you repeat it, and there's no copyright on truth.
He's just, he articulates it well. There's a lot of thoughts that normally in most people's brains are kind of a generic. They're like a combination of a thought and a feeling. It's part of your attitude towards something, and you may have never tried to articulate it before. This guy finds the right words.
He also connects the strings between things that you already know.
Right.
And when he says it, you're like, that's right. That's right. I've never been able to make that connection or make that articulated the way that he just did. A lot of people in one of his lectures, he said, people come up to him and say, I knew what you were saying, but I've never been able to say it as well as you said it. You know, and tell you what, it's ammunition in your pocket if you can intelligently speak about what you know, and you know that what you know are facts, or at least the facts as we understand them, as opposed to the ridiculous things that come out of some people's mouths. But anyhow, so where are we? So he catches MJ. She falls in his arms, and he's not wearing his glasses, and she never paid attention to him more than in this moment in her life so far. And she's like, oh, I never noticed your blue eyes before. And they have this little goo goo gaga thing. She's like, do you have contacts? And he's like, doesn't even answer, but they have this moment where they're sharing. Yeah. It's his crush, and he's never been this close to her in his life, and he's probably having some spider-gasms or something going on. But he's definitely happy to be holding her in his arms, and she notices blue eyes. I'm sure he's pretty much putty now. Anyhow, after that, he's sitting eating his lunch. He's not at the cool table, so he seems to be by himself. And he lifts up his hand, and the fork comes up with him, and it seems to be attached to his hand, but it's really kind of attached to his wrist where the webs come from. And he doesn't know this yet. He hasn't been introduced to his own web powers. And he pulls on the fork, and there's webs that string out between his fork and his hand and wrist. And while he's doing this manipulating of his hand, trying to figure out what it is, he ends up shooting web across the room by accident, and it hooks onto a tray that's got a full complement of food on top of the tray. And for whatever reason, and it doesn't really look natural, but he's like, good, and he pulls on it and yanks the tray. Spider sense tells him to duck, so he ducks as the tray goes flying past, and he sits back up again and crash, and it smashes into the back of Flash Thompson, his favorite person in the high school, and spills nasty food all over his neck and on his back. And he's like, someone's going to die, you know, as soon as he has that look.
That brings up the part in No Way Home. Is it No Way Home? The third one, Chris? The third Tom Holland? That was No Way Home, right?
I don't know. Is it No Way Home?
It is, yes. I think.
How come I can't think of it? Anyway, that brings up the part where Tom Holland and Garfield are talking to him. Does the web come out of anywhere else? Oh.
Yeah.
It just comes right out of your wrist.
It comes out of his mandibles.
Right.
If you've been paying attention to our conversation. Anyway.
That's right. Now, this is one of the best scenes in the movie, I think.
Yes, it is
The bullet
good.
time is perfect.
Yeah.
Well, they lead into it well, too, because Flash doesn't know who did it. And it's not obvious to him that the Peter walking away from him is the one who did it until he sees the tray bebopping behind him, stuck to the thing. And Peter's sitting there like walking away, and here comes his little puppy following him, and it's the tray that's still attached to the web. And he gets out the door, but the tray doesn't make it through the door before it closes. And it's kind of like when you shut something in an elevator door, and it either goes up or down when the elevator moves, or you pull on it and you see you can't get it through, and then the door will open up and they'll grab it and take it. He gets it unattached somehow, and the tray gets left behind, and he's running down the hallway. But I thought it was funny that Flash wouldn't have known it was him, except he was dragging the tray behind him, and he put two and two together because he had no idea. Even the physics of how him dragging that tray could equate to how he got tray dumped on him. It's not obvious, but it's obvious that it must have been him because it's the only thing that makes sense. So he goes down the hallway and he's fiddling with his locker. And this is your favorite scene, Chris. You want to talk about this scene?
No, take it away. I'll just interrupt you.
Okay. I'm okay with that. If you're okay with that. So Peter sees a vision of a fist coming at him and ducks out of the way as the fist impacts the locker. And there are a whole bunch of punches that Peter's dodging like in the Matrix movie, including ducking all the way backwards like he's doing the
Going to Keanu.
The
What's
Keanu
the-
thing.
yeah, but what's the when you do it with the pole and you have
Limbo.
limbo?
Limbo, yeah.
He does that. He does that, and while he's back there, he makes eye contact with MJ, who seems to be curiously appalled that Peter's acting like a freak, even though they haven't said the words yet. She's clearly doesn't understand how he's doing the things he's doing, but he's dodging all these punches and making these moves. And one of the things
I love the punch, and he's looking. He goes out of the way, looks back and forth, and then
Yeah,
comes
it's a
back.
great-
double take.
it's a great visual effect. It's kind of like he dodges it, and he's like, as it's
all
going
the
by.
stuff. All the stuff that the people are watching can't see that he's moving that fast.
Yeah, well, he sees a spit wad coming out of the kid's straw, and it's got all the spray going with it, and he sees a fly that's like wings are kind of going like this, and he sees everything in slow motion. So whether or not
I like the way they showed it.
whether or not he perceives reality like the Flash does, that everything's moving in slow motion, he can push somebody to make them move in the flash speed, or if it's just that they slowed it down so you could see his reactions are improved in speed, and it's all spider sense. It's pretty cool. It was a pretty cool effect. So he dodges a whole bunch of stuff. He even I don't know if he does the flip, which freaks out the other bully that came to join Flash. But one of Flash's bullies come to beat him up, and he does a flip or something. And when he lands, Flash was like, "Well, let's get him." And he's like, "No, man, it's all you." He goes, "I've seen enough to know that this isn't going to go well." And he decides that it's all Flash, and Flash rage charges him, throws some more punches. He does some really spectacular dodging, grabs his wrist, and does a wrist turn move on him, which is quite painful to Flash, and everyone's kind of like, what the heck is going on? And he grabs the wrist, turns it, and then he does a Bruce Lee punch to the guy's chest, sends him across the floor, smashing into the locker on the other side, and he's kind of like when he's done, he makes that kind of a thing like, oh. And I like that because I've seen enough martial arts movies that when you're like Bruce Lee, he'll hit somebody like, oh.
Bruce Lee's 6-inch punch.
After he does the hit.
Yeah, it's great.
So it was pretty cool. He was like flexing his muscles and impressed with himself that he did all that too. And the other bully's like, Jesus, Parker, you're a freak, And everyone's kind of freaked out by it, but except for Harry, who's his friend. He's like, Peter, that was amazing, And so we get the amazing Spider-Man amazings. First time it's been applied to Peter's. Peter, you're amazing, or that's amazing, or something. So now so that's the iconic fight scene that Flash always deserves to be shown up whenever he picks on Spider-Man, who now has powers. Whether it's in the trying to keep a basketball away from him and slam dunking a basketball and shattering the basketball hoop in another movie or that sort of thing. Flash always seems to get what he deserves. And
If you looked at that scene objectively, it really seems like Parker was the instigator. Because if you didn't know the inside scoop of what was going on, you're sitting in the lunchroom, Flash gets whacked with a tray, he turns around, sees that it's Peter, goes to, get Peter, and then Peter, rages at him and punches him, but he was the instigator.
Yeah.
Well,
if you didn't know.
Anyone with any fighting training knows that Peter pulled the one line that you need to pull before any fight is either you say, I don't want any trouble, or you say, I don't want to fight you, Flash.
Right.
But you got witness.
Witness
said, he put his hands up and he said, I don't want to fight you. I heard him say it. I heard him say it.
Disclaimer.
Even if you're going to kick the guy's butt, always say, hey, I don't want any trouble, because you make sure someone sees you say it too. Otherwise, litigation follows.
Yes.
Okay. So Peter's kind of shocked by this. He runs into the alley outside the school. He looks at the spider bite on his hand. He starts to make some connections in his brain housing unit. And he looks at his hands, and he looks closer, and all of a sudden these really gross harpoon hooks that are used to kill a white whale come out of his finger in a whole bunch of places and show you that, oh, that's why he's got spider grip, And so once he sees that spider grip, spider hands, brick wall, I'm going to climb that brick wall. And here's where I really think they did the great job of getting Danny Elfman to do the music for this, because he has the ability to compose music for a scene that convinces you that that's what the music was written for, is that scene. And he starts climbing this wall like, and the Danny Elfman music, while he's kind of like doing the spider thing, sounds like spider theme music. It's not Spider-Man theme music. It's the theme music that you would write if you're watching a spider take those little steps, take a little more steps, And they really made it look like he was a spider climbing a wall. And I was impressed with that when I saw it in the theater. I thought, wow, that's really cool that he's not just going like Batman and Robin going up the side of a wall. He was actually looked a lot like a spider, moved like a spider, intuitively moved like a spider, and I was convinced that there was some spider in him, and as an audience member. So I like that, and I like the Danny Elfman music. Definitely climbing a wall music. That was good. He does rage music.
Like you're reading from my notebook.
Oh, well, sorry. That was Chris's idea. I stole it from him completely. I don't have an original idea in my head. I stole it from Chris.
That's big of you to come clean. I appreciate that.
Do you appreciate that? Anyway.
How does that appreciation make you feel? This one's toward Todd, actually. How does that appreciation make you feel?
Getting through it. I'm feeling better all the time.
Everything makes me feel insecure. Do I look insecure? We start to see some of the more of the powers from the list of the three spiders combined into Peter's red and blue spider that bit him. He's going to do some super jumping. So he starts jumping between some of the buildings. Another good scene where the comedy guys, I really like the scene just because it was awkward, and the awkwardness was funny, but he tries to shoot a web on purpose. So he kind of looks at his arm like, I think I can do this, and there's something over there I want to shoot at to see if I can do it. And he's like,
go web.
Nothing happens. Go web. Yep. Fly, it's not just fly, it's fly, and up and away web. And he goes, Shazam, and go web, go, and he does this little, and then it shoots, but he's kind of like trying to figure out how to make it go. And somehow intuitively, he's got the two fingers down, just like traditional Spider-Man. But really, that is on every other show. that's the thing pushing the plate on his palm to make the web shooter shoot. But his little flick is exactly the flick he needs for his wrist to emanate the web. And I thought it was interesting, but probably unnecessary because it probably could have stayed connected to the spinneret, whatever you want to call it. But it looked like it shoots out, and he caught it before it got out of his grip because he's fast enough to catch it as it's going out the hole. But apparently it doesn't stay attached to his wrist unless he's holding onto it in his hand. So he's not hanging from his like web, and he can't help it. He shoots it, catches it. Now I've got it in my hand, but it's no longer attached to the wrist. Little details I thought were interesting, but the Spider-Verse does a really good job of explaining that that's why it's different in every one and different from the comic, and you no longer can complain that it's not canon because everything's canon now because it just matters what version of the multiverse you're in. But very good scene. I liked it. So he's spending the day playing. I think is this. He also tries to swing. This is his first try to swing. I think it's this scene.
Yeah, and
Swings off a building, and he's running on a roof, and he's nearly colliding with the vent pipes that stick up on the tops of roofs, which is a good touch because it makes you think that. Yeah, why would he know what's on top of roofs, or why would he be able to avoid it? He's never been on roofs before, perhaps. But as he's coming, he finally gets a view of the billboard that he's about to slam into, and there's no way to stop, and there's nothing to slow down, and he just kind of does a wall slap and drops down like a ugh. And the next scene, he's coming home, so he spends time checking out his powers and getting his skill set down a little. When he finally comes home, it's late. He looks and he sees this paint tray filled with a paint roller, which annoys me because the paint was never cleaned out of the paint roller, but that's just me. And it's clear that he missed his appointment with Uncle Ben to do the room painting. And although the electrician of Uncle Ben doesn't know how to clean out his paintbrush, he apparently is a really good speller because I spelled Michelangelo wrong several times in my notes until I looked it up. And he got it right. So in the movie, it's actually spelled properly. Hey, Michelangelo, there's food in the fridge if you're hungry. Because not only had he missed his appointment to paint, which was where the Michelangelo dig was, a little bit of passive aggressiveness from Uncle Ben there, and but they still cared about him as a nurturing parent to make sure he had food, just in case, because they still cared about him even though. There was a little bit of a disappointment. They still wanted to make sure he had food. So that was kind of more reasons why Peter's behavior is egregious in not being more gracious or have more gratitude towards Uncle Ben, which we'll see pretty soon. All right. So, and it's interesting that these perfect, nurturing, loving events that we see between aunt and uncle and Peter are the exact opposite of the abusive ones that MJ has with her father. And she notices this as well. As Peter's taking out the trash, presumably from the painting evolution and maybe from what's left from him warming up his dinner or whatever, he meets MJ out in the alley, and there was shouting going on, and Peter probably heard it, and she goes, "You heard that, right?" And he goes, "That shouting?" And he goes, "Yeah, well, sometimes parents shout." And she goes, "Aunt May and Uncle Ben don't shout." So at least she's sad enough in her sad state to realize that at least not everybody has it as bad as she does, and perhaps she's in a bad place, but she can at least dream that she had someone as loving as Uncle Ben and Aunt May, because they don't seem to act the way her parents act. Peter says in his shamed voice a little bit, because he's still feeling guilty about letting down Uncle Ben with the paint job, that sometimes sometimes they can yell pretty loud, referencing the passive aggressive note that Uncle Ben left by calling him Michelangelo. So for Peter, apparently if you call him names because he obviously let you down, and he'll realize it as soon as he sees that you called him the name, that's enough that, because words hurt. Words really do hurt. And
I
so
feel that.
you could get abused by your abusive parents, or you could just be called Michelangelo, and I get it. Okay.
Yep.
Um, da-dum. So Peter,
Hey, Todd, are we at
yep,
a good stopping point? We're about 2 hours
yep.
right now.
Okay.
Are you?
Stopping for the first half to the second half,
Yeah, are
or
you available tomorrow night?
I think that's something that's probably true.
Chris,
Yes.
are you available tomorrow?
Yes.
What time would be good?
My schedule tomorrow night is more flexible,
Okay,
so I could be on earlier
sweet.
or
I'm
later
good.
What
I'm good
or
with that.
whatever.
time do you want? What time works for you guys? Is that what we call it? 2 hours, and we'll be able to take care of the art. I'm also having a really bad buffering issue. We've been pretty much red the whole night, so although I don't see it a lot on the stream, um, we're we're really having quite a lot of buffering issues in the transmission to YouTube. So
Todd,
hopefully it'll
what
be
would
better
be
tomorrow.
convenient for you?
I'm open for anything.
I'm good. I have nothing else going on tomorrow. So
You
seven
want to do
o'clock.
it like
You want to do it
7?
earlier? You want 6 o'clock? 7 o'clock?
Yeah, that sounds good.
7
Seven
sounds
7.
o'clock
good.
sounds great.
That way
Yeah,
everybody can eat and okay. Yeah, we can continue this
that'll
tomorrow, and
work.
I'll have another set
Well,
tomorrow then, because I'm already
yeah,
done
we
with
did.
this one.
We added a lot of philosophy to the beginning of this, so we didn't even get halfway through the commentary. But let's
It is packed full of scenes, though.
yeah, maybe we'll do three-parter. But here's an opportunity, Thurn, for you to describe what you just did.
All right. The only thing I didn't put any stickers on anything because I like to keep the pieces available for other things. I don't like stickers. Like I had stated before, I have all these stickers, still brand new. I have put some on some different sets, but for the most part, I don't like to. So we have the transformation chamber, the gas chamber, where you stick go in the door. Ouch. Come on. So you go in the door as Norman Osborn. The gas goes in, and you become the Green Goblin. Doesn't quite work that way, but got a nice little place for his helmet. Some switches that you can throw in order to get the injection of gas. I don't know how I'm going to be able to get that quite clear on the camera. And you get the
Do
guy.
they have a Do they have a Lego guy face with a crazy face?
Um, you mean does one of these actually? I don't think
Have a psychotic looking?
No, I don't think on this one. I think this one's just normal. I don't think he's a. Oh yeah, here we go. It does have a. I guess I forgot. So there is a crazy. Let me show you guys so you can see it. Kind of a toothy grin. So it's the back of his head. So all in all, I mean, it's a cute little set. It's small. Um, I don't know why it would be worth $500 now, but if you got it brand new in a box, it's 500. If you don't have it brand new in a box, it's in the 200 range. And having the stickers brand new, definitely.
Do you think they're original production and that when they run out, they run out?
Yeah, there's a piece here that you cannot get. This there's a door, or not a door, the window on the goblin's chamber. I lost that, and I didn't know where it was until yesterday. I finally found it. It was not in a Lego bin at all. I remember seeing it eventually. My memory is shot, so but I ended up finding it because I'm a pack rat and I don't throw things away, and I ended up finding it. So that worked out pretty good. This is kind of cool. It's got some little spiders in the far container here, just so you can look at the spiders. You have one that's being looked at under a microscope or under a magnifying glass. A couple of cool computer screens and keyboards. I like that. Had some cool pieces to this.
Is it the world's largest electron microscope on the eastern seaboard?
Yeah, yeah. This is definitely an important piece. It's a magnifying glass. That's it. That's all it is.
But that's actually pretty cool.
It's an actual
You
magnifying
could
glass.
you could play with a laser pointer with a rubber band around the button to have it constantly